Welcome. It is 6:30 on Monday, June the 26th, 2023. I call to order this meeting of the Burnsville Planning Commission. Tonight's Planning Commission meeting is being held both in person and online via Zoom. As chair, I'll be leading the Planning Commission meeting, and the public is welcome to participate when required throughout the meeting. Members of the public may attend the meeting both in person or online via Zoom. Additional instructions on how to participate are located on our city's website, which is at burnsvillemn.gov on the public meeting calendar. As usual, tonight's meeting is also being available for viewing on BCTV along with the city's website. If you are unable to participate tonight and like to submit public testimony, I encourage you to either email staff or send us a mail through to City Hall. You may participate in tonight's meeting by going online to zoom.us/join. Type in a meeting ID 874-7059-4557. Once logged into the meeting, please use the chat feature to tell the moderator which item you'd like to speak to. There's only one, so that makes it that much easier for you. If you experience audio problems, you can back out of Zoom and come back in. That usually fixes the issue. You can also participate by calling in to our hotline at 651-372-8299. Again, you'd use meeting ID 874-7059-4557. For each public hearing, I will open up a time when callers may speak to that item. You'll be on mute until then, and when that time comes, you dial *6. And again, you would speak with a moderator. Just be aware that there is a slight delay between what your computer processes and what the phone processes. So if you have something on in the background, please turn it down so it doesn't cause that echo effect. With that, I would like to transition on to the agenda. Commissioners, you should have received an agenda in your packet on Thursday. Any changes to the agenda? Seeing none. Staff, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
No changes. With that, I would look for a motion for the agenda. Commissioner Anderson.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda is made by Commissioner Anderson. Do I have a second? Commissioner Awad.
I will second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Awad. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. We also received meeting minutes from our most recent meeting, which was June 12th, and that should also have been in your packet. Hopefully you guys had a chance to read through it. Any changes to those meeting minutes? None from the commissioner's staff.
No changes.
No changes. I would look for a motion on the meeting minutes. Commissioner Braddock.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion made by Commissioner Braddock. Do I have a second? Commissioner Timmerman.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Timmerman. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion passes. Number 3 on our agenda, we have a public hearing. It's an application of Clear Channel Outdoor LLC for a zoning ordinance amendment to modify the text of Title 10-30-9, which is billboards, to allow electronic dynamic display on 2 sides of the billboard sign. Here to speak on this issue is Deb Garros, our city planner. Ms. Garros, the floor is yours.
Thank you, commissioners. We do have the applicant here this evening that can address the commission as well. With this, we are looking at a public hearing for a zoning ordinance amendment to the sign regulations. The background for this is related to billboards. The city of Burnsville has regulated billboards since its inception and probably before, and even in township days. So they have looked at this ordinance many times over the years. The most substantial regulations relating to billboards probably occurred in 2012, and we provided that background information for the commissioners. Basically, what the applicant is requesting is to modify that language again, and the current ordinance allows these dynamic display on one side of a billboard. They're requesting to change the ordinance to allow it on both sides of a billboard. With that, the current ordinance, and this will continue, does allow for the addition of a dynamic display, provided that another sign face, billboard sign face, is removed elsewhere within the city. And this application will continue to allow for the public service announcements like the city currently has. And the architectural standards of the ordinance were changed in 2012, and the applicant's two signs really are the most current applications we have. So in terms of the inventory, back in 1988, we had 23 billboards. I changed this a little bit as of the end of 22, and currently we have 8 billboards in the city, and 3 of those existing billboards are by either court settlement or the agreement with the property owners scheduled to go away this year, leaving 5 billboards. And the applicant has a billboard on the top. That would be the northernmost billboard on I-35, and on the map it's listed as Clear Channel. It's billboard number 1. Number 2 is a different company. That's the south sign on the Kramer property. And then there is another one that's identified as number 3, which is actually on the east side of I-35. And then number 4 on the map is the other Clear Channel sign. And then just the other signs that are within the city. The top one is for number 5, that's on the edge of the city limits with Savage. And then the bottom one is on Highway 13, and that's identified as number 6 on the map. And in the future, if this amendment is approved, the applicant would propose to take down this sign, which has 2 faces, in order to allow them to modify the existing 2 signs to add a new dynamic display on each of those 2 signs. And these are 2 signs that will be going away this year. They're up by the County Road 42 and 35, and these will be going away by agreement by the end of this year. So the ordinance itself is pretty simple. We're just modifying the language of one provision to allow these to be on 2 sides of a billboard structure as opposed to 1. When this first came to us in 2012, these types of signs were relatively new technology, and in doing the review and the research, the city decided to allow them on the 1 side. Since that time, I mean, you see these all over the place in the Twin Cities area. We don't have any residential areas adjacent to these, so don't anticipate any issues regarding being able to let the other side be dynamic display as well. So with this, the recommendation from staff is to recommend approval of the ordinance. There is one condition that is identified, and that is that on both of these signs, currently there's the City of Burnsville logo, and I believe the city is in the process of looking at some rebranding and has requested the applicant to see if they could remove those signs. The applicant has looked into it and indicated that they can do so. So we are recommending approval, and I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Garros.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions for city staff? What's the reason for having the swap out on the billboards? You said gain 2, remove 2?
Yeah, basically, the city, ever since we started with regulations, has been looking to remove as many billboards as possible. So that's kind of the way that the ordinance was written initially. So if you take 1 sign face down of a regular billboard, you can then add an automatic display billboard on that side. So that's really the rationale behind that.
Interesting, yeah, very interesting. Believe it or not, I remember, so I started with the Economic Development Commission back in 2012, and it was when this first came up, and they talked about electronic billboards, and it just, no idea what they were talking about. I was like, no, there's no such thing. What the heck? And now you see them all the time, like you said. So, well, that's great. Well, seeing there is no questions for city staff, it is a public hearing. So at 8:39, I would like to open up that public hearing. Anyone who is on Zoom may let the moderator know that they're here to speak on this issue. Otherwise, anybody else that is in the room may also step up and speak to the issue as well, and I know the applicant, Matthew Wieland, is here to speak on this, and if you would like to come up to the podium, again, if you can state your name and address for the record, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, Chair, Planning Commission. My name is Matthew Allen. I'm with Clear Channel Outdoor. We address out at 3225 Spring Street in Minneapolis. It's my pleasure to be here. It was just about 11 years ago was the last time I was in front of this body requesting the sign ordinance change to permit the dynamic digital signs that we have now. Those got installed in 2013. We've been running them, safely and consistently since then. So it's my pleasure to be here tonight requesting this slight modification to ordinance. Certainly want to thank your staff first. Deb's been really good to work with. And certainly appreciate your consideration of this request. Dynamic digital billboards really is the next evolution in our business. Like you said, back in 2012. The first ones we put in the market were back in 2006 in Minnetonka. So since then, I just put my 78th and 79th up in Columbus, way north of the city. So we have almost 80 operating in the Twin Cities now. The reason we want to see them, we understand consolidating billboards. I'm a former city planner, and I want to see them in the right places. As an industry, we don't like taking down things that can't replace, but it makes sense in that we're removing signs at 13. We can replace those on 35. Digital billboards do allow us give us more opportunities for local advertisers or local businesses to advertise, because it's like there's 8 faces on it. So it is a reasonable trade-off, and we think it's a good win-win for both parties. Not only does it allow flexibility for our advertisers' messaging, they can change their message all day. There's more opportunities for local business to advertise, and it also allows us to further our commitment to the cities we operate in. We do provide that public service. Is there a way I can show a document?
Yes, if you just, I think, put it right.
Where it says place document?
This document here.
Zoom into
Do
the
I?
point. There you go.
Oh, look at that. And does it zoom out? Well, I'll move it around. I just want to show some examples. But the other amazing thing about cities now is they have communications department in most cities that we do this in. Your city is a real good example of utilizing the public service, and they actually design their own creative. It's complicated for me. I know it's not totally that complicated, but this is just some recent examples of PSA we ran for the city, but they do a really good job of using it, and like I said, they design their own creative. But with that being said, the other thing I'll point out is most cities we operate in do permit digital signs on both faces. I do believe at the time, like Deb said, cities we're still trying to figure out the technology and wanted to make sure they're in the right places. But, the other Dakota County neighbors you have, Egan and West St. Paul and Grove Heights, Minneapolis, they all permit digitals on both sides. It's more about them being in appropriate locations. But with that, I'm available for questions, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Wellen. You did a great job in kind of hooking us in by telling us all the neighbors that use the double-sided. So now we feel like we've got to keep up with the Joneses. Any questions for the applicant, commissioners? Commissioner Timmerman.
Thank you for being here. I think it's great. It's nice to see Pastor John on the screen here. I think that it makes sense. It's the new technology. It's not new anymore, but it's a slam dunk. I don't know what we really need to talk about, but I think that one of the questions that I had for you is the city cannot statutorily regulate content on the billboards. Does your organization have a content plan to ensure that the information is reasonably appropriate?
Excellent question, Commissioner. Yes. It's a fine line for cities and ourselves with First Amendment rights, and that's one of the things our business exists on. But as a private company, we do have content regulation, and that's I'm the Vice President of Real Estate and Public Affairs, so when ads get a little edgy is when I look at them with our president. And if we feel, we'll never put up stuff that's not factual or inappropriate. All that stuff we can monitor as a private company. We can tell advertisers no. So we do take that very seriously on what we do put up on our boards.
I appreciate that. I agree. I think it's a fine line. You don't want to infringe on any organizations or individuals' First Amendment rights. At the same time, you're in the driver's seat to be able to have a say in that, whereas unfortunately we aren't. So I
Yes.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Great question.
Ms. Garros?
Just one note for the commissioners, there is a separate, I'm not sure what it's called, but there's a separate agreement that the city has with the applicant that talks more about, how often to be advertised and some of those types of things. So that is something that is done administratively through staff.
Correct, the public service, we have a public service agreement that talks about when we put up these ads, yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant, commissioners? So you said 8 sides, so is it 4 and 4?
I'm sorry, there's 8 flips per board, so they rotate every 8 seconds, so there's
Okay.
8 slots, so it's like it's an opportunity for 8 different advertisers to be on that board then.
And so the location of the billboards now are on the west side of 35W, so the front side would be looking at the southbound, well, depending what you call the front.
Right.
But it is on that far side, so are you turning the billboards, or how is that?
Nope, it's just the.
I'm trying to visualize it. I
Pull out the drawing,
apologize.
hold on a second.
I'm a visual person.
Oh, that's good. Or they had it up. I don't know if there's a way I do this. Sorry.
You're okay.
Actually, it's better if I just find a different picture. Here we go. Yeah, so this is that first billboard coming into town on the north. This is the digital side right now. It's just the back face of it. It's currently up, which is here is this picture right here.
Oh, okay.
Here.
I thought you were gonna flip it over and be on the back side of the
Sorry.
page.
No, sorry. So it's right here.
Okay.
So it's just what we call our printed product now. And that's what just gets converted. So yeah, everything stays the same. And really the way we operate them is we don't want them to look much different than a printed billboard. And they rotate every 8 seconds. It's instantaneous. It's hard to even notice they move unless you're staring at it, or it goes from light to dark. But we do want them to operate just like we don't want it to look much different.
Right, safety and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like a great product, and to be able to use the city signals or communications is great as well. Commissioner Watt, I think, has something to say.
Yeah, so why 8, why 8? I mean, under 8 seconds I understand, but you're saying it's only 8 ads per panel. Is that right?
Correct. There's 8, we call them 8 slots.
Yeah, why
So
is it
it's,
8 slots and not, you could have 200 slots or,
Well, it's just the business model.
Okay.
It roughs out to a minute, and the reason we get to 8 seconds, I think the federal government actually allows 6, but when federal government did an independent study in the Federal Highway Administration, and they came up with a study that driving about 60 miles an hour, you probably only see one face every 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So you probably only see one
Yeah.
to begin with. So that's where the 8 seconds comes in, and when they change, and it's just our business model.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of flexibility in it. You can buy a day, you could buy a week, you could buy a month.
yeah.
It allows a lot of flexibility.
Thank you.
Really interesting. Well, thank you so much for coming and speaking on the issue, and we appreciate you guys doing business here in Burnsville and helping us out.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time.
And seeing that there is nobody online and nobody else is in our chambers here, I am going to close the public hearing at 6:49. And I'm going to turn to my fellow commissioners and ask, hey, what do we say, kids? Commissioner Anderson?
I'm actually kind of curious about one thing. We had mentioned that the location, especially for that one that we were looking at, is not near any residential zones. If the quarry area or anything like that ever got developed, would that be too close to that by what the city wants, or no? I'm just curious.
The owner of the quarry is familiar with this and with the signs, and kind of the feeling would be is at the time of development, when something's actually going to be built out there, at that point in time, the billboard would likely come down so that something else could be developed on that property. That is not likely to happen for many decades, so there will be lots of time for these signs. I think that the city would take a look at it. It depends on the zoning. Currently, the ordinance allows these signs in industrial zoning districts, I-1 and I-2, so the basic area is pretty much along 35.
Perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Wad?
I would like to make a motion unless anybody else has comments or questions.
Does anybody have something to say? No? Commissioner Wad, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. So I move that we recommend to the city council approval of the proposed ordinance amendment as drafted, subject to the following condition. Condition number 1, the city logo signs on billboard structures 1 and 4 shall be removed.
Well, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Anderson?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. So all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that passes. It looks like you will be on the consent agenda for our July 18th City Council meeting at 5:30 right here in City Hall in these city chambers. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Whelan.
Thank you, guys. Have a great, enjoy your 4th of July holiday.
You too. Great 4th of July. And with that, I am going to go to the next item on our agenda, which is updates. Commissioners, any updates for the commission? Council's watching. No updates. Staff, any updates? Should have waited until Deb got to her
It's okay.
seat.
Just a couple of items. The city council did approve both of the projects that planning commission recommended for approval. Didn't make any changes to the conditions, so that would be the Diffley 13 project and also the Cub 42 project. And I did receive some information. Apparently the concept plan for the Egan site, they have a comprehensive plan amendment, and I believe that will be tomorrow night on their agenda if you want to kind of see what's proposed or what's the concept is.
Good deal.
Other than that, that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Ms. Girls. The update I have is, obviously, this is the end of our fiscal year. As in July, we'll be changing over again, having new elections for chair, et cetera, et cetera. I just want to extend gratitude for all the work that you guys have done over the past year. You guys do a really good job. Ask all the sufficient questions, do everything very well, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. Council does too. They do have one item that they want to ensure that we do meet our 75% attendance. It's very important to them that, because there's all kinds of people that would like to be on these commissions, and that's very important. I did get a chance to speak to the mayor before it came out tonight, and she wants to extend her gratitude and tell you how great of a job you guys are doing here and are asking the right questions and getting the job done for them. And she says you can see that because when you look at these items that go on the consent agenda, nobody wants to pull them off because we've done all the work and did all the clearing of that. So that shows what a great job we're doing, and she appreciates everything that everybody does here. And I want to extend that as well. And I also appreciate the work the staff does. And you guys do an excellent job putting things together and getting us our information as soon as we can, and appreciate that throughout the year. With that, that's all I have to say, and that's the end of updates, which brings us to our last item on the agenda, which is adjournment. Commissioner Braddock.
I'll motion to adjourn the meeting.
A motion by Commissioner Braddock to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second? By Commissioner Wad.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Wad. Do I have let's do a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Unanimous. With that, we'll call it there. Have a great night.